Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about another example of a ZwoBot signal chain that I have used. So this one includes 5 modules. So I'm just going to go through each of those one by one and then talk about how they're being used together. And I've also got a bit of clip automation in here, so I'll talk through that. So let's start by turning everything off apart from this Lorenz module. So I'm just gonna switch all these off. So the very bottom module we can see in our signal chain here is Lorenz. I'm going to turn this kaleidoscope effect off as well. So that's this here. So if I hit play, this is what is being created by this module. So I've got no images or videos in this example. The visuals are all coming from ZwoBot modules, and this is the underlying basis of this visual, and that's coming from here. So we've got the draw speed turned right up, the attractor turned right up, the density is just set to here. We've got it set to points here, but I have got some automation which is going to change that to lines at a certain point in the song, but I'll come back to that later. And this trails setting I've got set to respond to the lower frequencies, but I've obviously not got any audio playing at the moment, so that's not doing anything. I've got this Col-Duo module, which is set to the pin blend mode. However, that's not doing anything because in my clip automation that is set to be off at the moment. So even though it's showing us on here, you'll see as soon as I hit play, it switches off. So we're not going to see that until the clip automation tells it to turn on. So we'll come back to that later. I'll come back to the LFO as well. On top of the Col-Duo module, we have got this blur module. So that's just applying a blur and glow effect. And that's just, as you can see, softening up the particles of the Lorenz module. On top of that, we've got the zoom module, which is over here. So this is on a separate channel, it's on a MIDI channel, and the reason for that is because I want it to be responding to the drums of the track. If I turn it on, you'll see I've got these audio reactive controls here. This is an audio channel, and this is just the full track, the full final mastered track. So if I put the zoom module on here, it's going to respond to everything in the track, but I only want it responding to the drums. So what I've done is I've imported the drums from the track onto this MIDI channel so that these audio settings will only respond to the drums, and then I've just muted them. So you can still get audio responsiveness without actually hearing the track if you just mute it down here. The ZwoBot module will still recognize the audio. So I've got the speed and scale both responding to the lower frequencies, which in this case is going to be the kick drum. And then I've got the mode set to circle, so if I change it to rectangle, it looks like this. But for the purposes of this, I quite like it on circle. And then the zoom mode is alternating between in and out because I've turned this beat control switch on. So that is changing in accordance with the master beat control, which is on my ZwoBot player module over here. So it's set to 2 notes. So this is going to change from in to out and out to in every 2 notes in accordance with this master control. And the position is just set to the default position. I've not changed anything there. If you wanted this to be a bit slower, or if you wanted the scale to be smaller, you could adjust the sensitivity of these sound reactive controls. So you can see this is moving much slower now. If you wanted to adjust that, you could just turn down the sensitivity. And then the final module we've got is this move module, so I'll just switch that on, and you can see that is what is causing the movement for the whole thing. This has an internal BPM beat control, so that is going to override the master beat control here. So this is set to 2 notes, but I've got this internal one set to 1 note. So everything in this module is going to change according to this, not according to this. So we've got the sequence mode set to random, which just means that the direction that it's moving in is going to be randomized. Quickset is also set to random, and then this mode is set to respond to the higher frequencies. So currently it's staying on the same one because no audio is playing, but you'll notice as soon as I start playing audio here, this will start changing in accordance with the higher frequencies. So there we go, you can see that that is changing the mode. So we're getting different kinds of movement. Okay, so let's take a look at these LFOs. So I've got two LFOs. One of them is controlling these Col-Duo presets. It's set to random, so it's going to randomly select one of these 9 presets, and the rate is set to 4. So every bar, it's going to change the preset here. And we're not seeing that at the moment because, as you can see, this Col-Duo module is not switched on. And that is because I've got some automation that is going to turn that on at a certain point in the song. So we'll come back to that later. So we're not seeing the effect now, but that's what the LFO is doing. It's just scrolling through these presets randomly. And then we've got another LFO over here. If I switch that on, that is applied to the kaleidoscope setting on the player. And that is also set to random, and the rate is set to 2. But it's only going between 0 and 10%, which means it's only going to alternate between 0, 2, and 4. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the clip automation we've got here. So on this clip, which is the actual track, if I go here, now remember, in order for clip automation to work, it has to be set to warp. If I turn this off, the clip automation is all going to disable. So you need to make sure your clip is set to warp for it to work. So if I go into my envelopes tab and I click on this menu, I can see all the devices that have automation applied to them from this little red dot. So if I start with the Lorenz module, and then I can click here again, and this shows me all the parameters on the Lorenz module, and this is the only one with the little red dot that has automation, so I can select that. And that, if I look at the actual module and I click play on the clip, you'll notice this red dot appears here. So this is the parameter that has automation on it. And if I go back into the clip, I can see that that automation is changing at this point. So here we go, it's going to change now. So there we go. That has now changed from points to lines. So that's that automation. That's the only automation we've got on that module, but I can see we've also got some on the Col-Duo module, and that is just changing this pass effect. So that's just switching the module on or off. So if we go back to the start of the clip, we can see that it's currently off. If I fast forward a bit, it's going to switch itself on, and you'll notice that the color comes in at that point. So here, there we go. So now this module is on, and you can see what the LFO is doing as well. It's changing the color. There we go. So the LFO is just going through these presets. And we've also got some automation on the blur module. And that, we can see here, is switching on sound reactivity. So at the start, we've got no sound reactivity on it, which is what this 2 setting is. That's just this X, which is off. And then when we get to this point, it's going to change to 0, which is high. So it's going to start responding to the higher frequencies. So we should see that come into play here. There we go. So along with the color coming on, we're also getting the blur changing. And we've also got some clip automation on the LFO. It's this LFO, the kaleidoscope LFO. So at the start of the track, I think I would have to manually change this to 0. So this will be set to 0. And then when we get to this point in the track, the LFO is going to come on, and that's going to start modulating the kaleidoscope. So no kaleidoscope at the moment, and now the LFO comes on and we can start to see that it's now being modulated, so that kaleidoscope effect is starting to come in. So that's another example of a ZwoBot signal chain that you can use, and some examples of how you can use clip automation, which can be quite handy if you're recording something rather than performing it live. It can be very useful to use clip automation rather than having to manually change everything, because you can make sure that everything is perfectly on time, and you can also adjust multiple parameters at the same time. Okay, if you like that video, subscribe to the channel. I've got a few more examples of ZwoBot signal chains on there, and I've also got a series of tutorials that I'm doing on each individual ZwoBot module. So have a look at the playlist if you're interested in that. And leave a comment in the comment section if you found this useful, and if there's anything in particular you would like me to focus on with future videos.